Human civilization works best when we share to some degree, or a good degree. We're not in this alone. Sometimes things are very difficult, and it's always good to support each other. Hey, Koby's Garden Alchemy buddies. This section, this episode, is titled The Garden of Human Kindness. Why this title? Because at its core, a living garden involves growing and cultivating plants. And it's not a far stretch to translate that kind of care directly to humans. Although at its best, the garden of human kindness would be planning, care, and maintenance in a humane way. This is about intention, action, and follow-up. In this episode, I'll be dwelling on 3 areas of care: self, household, and community. All are important. Again, I've got some notes, but I won't be talking all of the notes. Touching base and connecting with people on a more human aspect about care and maintenance, especially in this time with this pandemic going on, I think might be helpful. That's my intention. I have 2 initial thoughts about these situations or problems that need addressing. One is a Zen perspective on worry, and it goes something like this. If you can do something about a situation, do it. There is no need to worry. Or, if you can't do something about a situation, there's no need to worry. One perspective that I go back to very frequently, since I have my own business, and I don't have anybody leaning over my shoulder or necessarily telling me what to do. I have to be proactive and figure out, after assessing it, it's like, what can be done? If I can do it, then potentially I just plan out the steps of, okay, how do I do it? Or what things do I need to get? Or how do I do it? Or who do I need to contact? Or do we need someone else's help? There are times when things can be worked on, amended, or fixed. And there's times when they can't. So me having a candid conversation with the people I'm working with helps me. I have to say, this is easier, I think, to some degrees, from an outside perspective. When things are happening in one's own life, to one's own self or one's own close personal friends or some of the relationships, sometimes it's harder to see things without the emotional stuff kind of maybe coming a little bit in between a person and the situation, and I know this happens. So this would be when it's good to potentially confer with other people. I'll dwell on that a little bit more later. So about what can be done. My first topic is self-care, and I've got 2 other ones that I'll address. The other one is home and the other one's community, and they tie into many other things. But if one wants to be of the most usefulness in this world, keeping oneself up to a certain degree is very, very important. And although I know, especially at this time, there are many very important things, a little bit of self-care is absolutely okay. I feel for people who are in situations where they've got to constantly be doing work or help or maintenance, or they have a big family or a young family or an old family, and it takes a lot of concentration, energy, and focus to work with those things. And what I can say are, for those of you who can, for a while, I hope you can get a break or take a break. And I don't just mean 5 or 10 minutes. talking during the day, maybe not every day, but where you do something just a little bit for yourself. Read that something that you want to read. Make that cup of tea. Listen to that music. Watch that show. I think you're entitled to a half an hour of something. Many days, most days. I hope that happens. There's so many little things you could do. If you have some perfume or cologne that you like, if you have a nice outfit you like, you don't have to absolutely wait till the super special moment to save every little thing. I think it's really good and healthy in the long run, in the duration, for at times treat yourself like you are someone special. You deserve it. You're worth it. It's fine to treat other people like they're special, of course. So are you. The other thing is being highly aware, as I mentioned in my prior video, when it's cold and flu season for yourself, one of the perspectives I heard was just think about it as if you have something and you don't want to touch everything too much outside of your own home in particular, that if you might be transferring something or vice versa, just be very conscious and aware of things that you touch that any of, particularly the general public, would touch, or anybody out in public. And before you touch your face and eat your face too much until you're in these more protected areas, please wash your hands and be careful. This pandemic is so very serious that I'm taking it very seriously. So I find the view on that, it's good to be alert but not be alarmist. So I'm not trying to sensationalize anything or alarm anybody. Just keep that really heightened sense of awareness about you, and it'll probably be helpful in every year when it's cold and flu season. For self-care, the topic that I think is very important, that's about plants. And as I'd mentioned in my prior video, how when I was very sick with this virus that I had, and I'm not pretending to diagnose, treat, or cure anything, or that I have all the answers, or that this would make you better or make other people better. I need to be very clear about that. I think plants are good for us intrinsically. It's part of our nature. I think we evolved over millennia eating plants. To be as strong as an ape or as strong as an ox. Hey, they are plant eaters. So I'm not going to try to convince anybody to necessarily be vegetarian or vegan, but you might listen to a little bit of what I do. I have, before this virus was really coming into the news, over many years more and more interested in eating more healthy, primarily vegetable material, and trying to get really good information, which is a hard thing. And I found a particular source that I really like, Dr. Greger's nutritionfacts.org. I really like that his guideline is this gold standard of randomized, double-blind trials and studies, particularly peer-reviewed and then metadata. He's particularly carefully looking at studies that show by evidence what is helpful and happening between plants and people. Plants are good. He has articles which you can look up, and he does a lot of videos on little teeny tiny segments of very many little topics, and you can just type something in and look at it, whether it's a type of food or nutrition. It doesn't cover everything ever, but some vitamin stuff. It's mostly about what's plant-based and the interface with that, including particularly what we're putting inside of us that we eat, geared towards what is good, but some of the things that aren't. I would encourage you to check out nutritionfacts.org, where you will find a wealth of very carefully curated information. I think it's good stuff that's very, very important. Plants. Plants will save us. Plants are good. Most of the plants are good. With some of my supplements, I take a few things that are plant-based. I take turmeric because of studies that seem to be showing good evidence for helping the immune system and help with inflammation. Chlorophyll, interestingly enough, and be careful which way you're getting it. I just get broken cell algae chlorophyll, and unfortunately the blue-green spirulina on a very micro level, from the research I hear, has some neurotoxins in it. Do we really need to get that in our body? Yeah. I take ginkgo. I started taking this many years ago, and I'll give you my take on ginkgo. So ginkgo particularly is helpful for memory, and I am glad I gave it a very long shot. It took about a month or two before I noticed a change. And I've always wished I'd had an even better memory than I do have. I would say it's okay to good these days, but I remember, I'll give you a very distinct example. Do you know how when you are, well, anywhere, kind of, but particularly in your own home or in your own place of work, a place you're familiar with, where you will walk into another room and stop and stand there and think, what am I doing? What am I looking for? Why did I come in here? And this fog will kind of happen. Or, even worse, you'll open up a cupboard or a drawer and you'll pause, what am I looking for? And maybe if there's too many things there, you can forget, or you entirely forgot. I'm not joking when I say, taking this after a few months, it seemed to clear away the fog. I'm very serious about this. So for me, I stuck with it. It was helpful. So, ginkgo. That's my vote for ginkgo. So, I think the studies have showed it allows more oxygen to get past the blood-brain barriers. Part of my understanding, there may be other studies that have come to light in recent years that are even better, but I heard this study quite a long time ago. So, mushrooms. Mushrooms seem to be good on almost every level, except for the poisonous ones, but the mushrooms we can buy in the grocery store and get for supplements. Very good stuff for our body. Helping support and bolster the body's immune system. And there's studies about improvements with cancer, helping to stave off cancer. Again, it's not a cure-all. I need to be very careful saying that, but it may be helpful. And so every little bit we can get helps. There's no one-shot pill for anything. So I'm talking about nutrition and plants and how helpful they are with people and plants. It's a good thing. I've been taking something lately because I have moments when I'm stressed, or days, or even weeks, or periods of my life. And ashwagandha, it's the root of a plant that's from the area of India that's grown in many places now. But I find with me, it helps kind of soften the edges of a little bit of worry or anxiety. Again, it's not a cure-all, but it felt like it helped kind of settle me down a little bit, and it's like being around furniture with harsh edges and having a softness to them. It didn't make everything wonderful and every problem go away or make me forget about it, but it's helpful. It's been helpful for me, so it's just a thought. And GABA tea. It's G-A-B-A. And tea, like the camellia tea you drink, not T-zone, not just any kind of herbal thing. GABA, our brains produce GABA that helps us relax. I think it helps us. I'm not sure that it's intrinsically only is for sleep, but it helps us sleep. And I like the oolong kind of GABA. So GABA tea was discovered, I believe that how the story goes is in Japan when they were looking at ways of, after they dried the tea, storing it for longer periods of time. They had put the tea in a room full of nitrogen and finished curing it this way. And I don't know if they packaged it or just left the room full of nitrogen, but when they tested the tea later for its elements, they noticed tea has little bits of it in, but the tea that was cured in these nitrogen filled rooms had a lot more GABA composition in it. So interestingly enough, the oolongs that I have found, and there's different grades of them, and it's available in a green tea and I think some black teas. So black teas have a little more caffeine. I found oolongs to be medium, and then the green tea is just dried camellia leaves. That's kind of the three-ish types of teas. There's many varieties of all those, but you can find them in a GABA tea. And I've found that just brewing a mild cup, so not too strong, it's actually relaxing. Sometimes I almost want to take a nap. It doesn't knock me out. It doesn't put me to sleep. I find it good in the afternoon or evening when you're done with most of the things that you have to do to help give a little, it's hard to describe, it's just a little bit energizing and relaxing at the same time. It's just so pleasant. So one of my little helpful hints about plants, GABA tea, G-A-B-A. That's as much as I'm going to go into the self-care for the moment. As far as household care, I'm going to say this. You know within your household probably the projects that you could do at this time for what you're capable and you have the materials of. And if you're putting it off for now, there's projects for you to do. You know. It's a good time. And my last one involved with this garden of human kindness is community. And I have to say personally, to some degrees, I'm an introvert. And it's easy to stay at home. And it's easy to not interface. Fortunately, not completely. I'm not completely an introvert. And I like being social at times. So I'll tend to go out in little pockets and interface with these groups or things I do. And with the work I do, it's not entirely solo. I sometimes have some help, and I am interfacing with the clients, and sometimes it's a little bit lonely doing the very, very careful work I do. But for me here, talking about this now, community, I think the greater level besides the self-care and your household care, which can involve the people that are in your household, but I think there's some different levels of, I think it's very important to in this garden of human kindness to interface. It's about this connection. It's similar to what forests have with this mycorrhiza between our connection underground that's maybe not seen but's there, these relationships we have, and the virtual one that plants can communicate by molecules in the air if they have problems. If they're being eaten by bugs sometimes. Some plants do this. It's amazing, and they can communicate far away, and it's helpful. I think part of what's successful about human civilization is how we interface. And so if you have family that you haven't talked to in a while, it's a good time. Another member of a group you belong to, this is a good time. Or by whatever levels one is capable of helping out with humanity, whether it's just reaching out, and I got to say, if you can do it, I know now is not the time where we can or really should be meeting with people face to face. Normally I would say, please try that first. But being careful now, I would say the next closest thing is either a phone call, or if you can, some people have video capabilities these days. I think a lot of people do between their phone or their computer, where you could talk to someone for a while and see them. I think writing a note is good, but I'm going to say that should be the latter or last thing you do. I think in these exceptional times, trying to take more personalized measures by when you can hear the tone of someone's voice and when you can see them with all their expressions, whether they be very serious or sad or on the silly or happier side. You can hear that in the tone of someone's voice and you can see it in their face. And so, you know those relationships where you have been close to someone, or especially are close to someone, and if you have a little bit of extra time, as much as one can do maybe in a day or every few days or once a week, it seems reasonable. Reaching out will help strengthen and keep our web of the garden of human kindness. And to other degrees beyond that, with these situations, if one is able, as one is able, being helpful with either donations or time or knowledge, or when I say donations I mean money, but maybe food or clothing. Some of us have more resources than other people, and human civilization works best when we share to a good degree. We're not in this alone. Sometimes things are very difficult, and it's always good to support each other. So I'm going to mention another facet that I think is important, and it's helped me with my understanding as far as community and other people and humans as time has gone by, that I've said a long time ago, and kind of in a very casual, nonchalant, maybe a little bit off-putting way, that particularly when someone would be talking about someone in a situation they don't like or how they're acting particularly, it takes all kinds of people to make the world go around, I'd say. And I'd say maybe a better interpretation of that might be, it takes all kinds of people to make civilization go round. And so I'm going to put this on two sides. The people that we envy and the talents they have and maybe some of the resources, and then the people we might not care for too much, or maybe don't want to be around, or maybe they don't have resources. And the way I'm looking at this is from several different perspectives. I think there are times and places oddly, when I've looked at how someone acts, usually in what I would call the makeup and the world of humankind and this civilization and society, there's a time and a place for many things, not everything and not all the time. And being serious all the time can be too much. And being silly and funny all the time can be too much. And being quiet all the time, unless someone really can't talk, probably more helpful to communicate by some means, or sign language or writing or something, communication. So there's a phrase that I've thought of years ago. I'm afraid to say too much. I'm afraid to say too little. To say anything at all. I think work with your strengths. I think that humankind wouldn't have potentially discovered resources and new lands and new areas that were helpful to us if we didn't have people that were, to a certain amount, aggressive and adventurous. And those people, some of them, part of that, they're good soldiers. They're good scouts. They're good hunters. They're good adventurers, to a degree. I'm talking my perspective on facets of this. At the same time, and another facet, the stability of someone that stays at home and makes home and keeps home safe and sturdy and more stable. Maybe they build on and make it bigger. There's times for that's very important. There's times that we need a good laugh. And there's times we need to calm down and be very serious. What I've heard lately, some studies about companies with very conservative people in them and very liberal people in them, if the company's too liberal for too long, they may move out of a stable place they have and move into areas where they might have the good fortune of moving forward and doing better. And they might have the bad fortune of moving into areas and not doing so well by constantly changing too much. On the other hand, the conservatives, having someone, so my point is having both sides in a company is large. Having a conservative person helps keep and stabilize, or governments, helps stabilize the company from constantly, let's just say, freewheeling and being too wild. And from what I can gather from some of these better studies and overviews, having both helps create a very more stable company. And similarly, I think I'm just saying this is a human quality overall, is the point I'm trying to make. And so sometimes with our friends or relatives or stuff, and I'm going to get back to how people are, having these people with so many different qualities, and why are you always this way, and I don't understand why, or you could be envious. Some people are so good at math and engineering, and some people are very good at music, and some people are really good at cooking and sewing and talking. I mean, there are some professional people that talk, and counselors, and therapists, and not. I think in the overall big picture of humankind, not every aspect seems to be well employed all the time, and during different portions of different things happening in different eras in human nature, and sometimes different days and different years. Sometimes some of us can find ourselves to be very, very useful, and at other times not so much, and it's challenging. And again, supporting each other. And there's times when you get together with friends or family or business or other. There's times to talk a lot, but I have to say what's very important is sometimes it's time to listen to what the other person has to say. So, a good dialogue, there's a time to state what you have, and then pause and hear what the other person has to say. And then there's time for both to talk back and forth and have a discourse. And I think having the discourse is the healthiest thing. So that's my 2 cents on communication and trying to have some compassion and understanding with other people, because at times it's very hard. I'm going to wrap this section up on the Garden of Human Kindness with a quote that I heard when I was quite young, and I haven't heard it lately, but it came to mind. And anyway, this one's from Dinah Maria Murlock Craik. And she was a writer in the 1800s into the early part of the 1900s. And it's a short quote that I really like, that I hope this resonates with some people. Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all right out, just as they are, chaff and grain together, certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what's worth keeping, and then with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away. I have a special treat for you. So this is one of 2 atriums that I have been working on for about 20 years. Look at this beautiful bamboo palm and the blooms. Anyway, I have lots of goodies in here. The jewel in this desert of concrete and steel and glass. Anyway, so again, thanks for joining me and welcome to my world.